Hello. We are going to try ignore this whole mic thing. If you didn't watch my last video, I'm Jess. I'm nervous, can you tell? And I like to read literary fiction novels, women writing about other women. I love a character-driven novel over a plot-driven novel. You would also know that I live in Australia, so I'm currently in summer. Not that you would be able to tell. It is rainy and cloudy and I'm in a long sleeve, but we have had a week of nearly 40-degree days, and this is one of the first days that it's been cloudy, and I'm welcoming it. I made a video about all the books I wanted to read over the summer, but I'm a slow reader, so I probably won't make another video until the end of summer where I review all the books I've read. So I thought to make another video between then. It would have to be me talking about summer books that I recommend. These are some books that I've read over the last few summers, or books that I've read and thought I wish I had read this over summer. They're not all set in summer, so even if you are currently in winter, you might still be interested in picking this up. I wish I could say that these were kind of abstract books or under the radar books, but they're all quite popular, but maybe not as popular as, let's say, Call Me By Your Name, which is a brilliant summer read, and if you have not read that yet, I recommend. Okay, let's get started. So the first book that I'm gonna recommend, it is Circe by Madeline Miller. I read this during winter, and it was a few years ago now. I think I read this in 2020, but I remember in the midst of my seasonal depression, this helped. So this is a retelling of the myth of Circe. She is the witch that turned men into pigs. This kind of goes over her stories, who she was before, how she came to be isolated on the island, and why she has so much rage against men. And I loved it. This was a really great book and would be a fantastic book if you're going on holiday or if you're just going to the beach. It's not a small book, but I think you could easily read this if you had a whole day just at the beach. If you can't tell, that's what I would do if I had not read this. The next book I have is Elena Ferrante's The Lost Daughter. I do also on this pile have My Brilliant Friend, which I read the entire quartet at the beginning of this year during summer, and it was fantastic. It follows two friends and their friendship over the years. They live in a poor neighborhood in Naples. It starts in the 50s and the whole series spans about maybe 60 years, and it's just filled with corruption and violence, and there's a lot of commentary on class and gender, and there's so much in this series. I highly recommend it. I read the first book and the second book one summer, and then I read the second book in 2022, and then had my son, so I just didn't really read, which is why at the beginning of the year I just read all four back to back, and I really enjoyed that. But also you could easily just spread them out. I do normally, when I recommend Elena Ferrante, tell people to start with The Lost Daughter. It is a tiny little novel. It is a really good taste of what Ferrante's writing is like. The Lost Daughter follows a mother, and so it's her first holiday since they've been grown up, where she can just go and be herself. And she's reflecting on her time as a mother, even just thinking back on was motherhood what the path I was meant to take. While she's reflecting, a younger family not join her, but they are in her space. And she becomes really fixated on this young mum. And there's a bit of a surreal thread in this book. It's a bit of a quirky book. I absolutely love this book. I don't know if you can tell. If you are new to Ferrante's writing, I would recommend starting with The Lost Daughter. And then if you love it, which I'm sure you will, you should go on to the My Brilliant Friend quartet. So I have Death Valley and The Pisces by Melissa Broder. Both of these I read during the summer and just thought it was the perfect timing to read them. The Pisces is a bit of a weird one. So it does have some heavy themes in it, but overall the book is about this a girl called Lucy who decides to go and house sit in Venice Beach. Is it her sister that her sister she house dog sits for, and while she's there she meets a merman and they fall in love, and then not that that's not weird already, but things just get weird. And I really enjoyed this. I read this maybe 3-4 years ago and I really want to reread it. Melissa Broder is just such an interesting writer. This book follows our protagonist. Maybe she's unnamed. She just decides to just escape to the desert. Her father's in ICU and her husband has an illness. And while she's driving back, she pulls over and climbs into a cactus and has this really weird experience. So as you can tell, weird books. Melissa Broder also has another book called Milkfed, which is a bit more realistic. But these two books, they're fun. They're weird and they're fun, but they're also deep. You feel like you're getting a bit more out of it than just a strange story. This book deals with grief, the anticipation of grief. So her dad's in ICU, she doesn't know what's going to happen, her husband's got an illness, and she can't properly grieve yet. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with those emotions? I would maybe look up some trigger warnings, especially with the Pisces. I do recommend both of these, especially if you are a weird lit fic girly. If you've not read Melissa Broder, get her on your list. Speaking of weird, have you heard of Rouge by Mona Awad? I'm sure you have heard of Bunny, which is her most popular book. I have to say, I preferred Rouge. Now, I don't know if it's because I read Rouge first. I read Rouge at the end of last year, and then I read Bunny towards the beginning of this year. And they both have similar themes of a cult and a woman slowly losing her mind, that I don't know if after reading Rouge and then reading Bunny, I was just like, well, this one follows skincare and the other one follows academics. So it's kind of like, take your pick. Which one do you want to read about? What setting do you want? We follow Belle. Belle's mother is obsessed with youth and beauty, and in particular skincare. Sorry, I've been playing with my hair so much. And her mum mysteriously dies. So when Belle comes back to her mother's house and starts, planning the funeral, going through her stuff, she starts to question what happened to her mother. And when she's at the funeral, there is a guest in a cloak who obviously captures her attention, and she then gets invited to join. Anyways, it's a spa that her mother was a part of, and it's a cult. And when Belle starts attending the spa, after every time she starts to lose a memory, she starts to have blacked out times where she doesn't remember what's happened, and her last memory is going to the spa. Now she's woken up at home, and how did she get home? It's a snowball. It just starts getting weirder and weirder. Themes of beauty and aging And if you enjoy the movie The Substance or Death Becomes Her, I think you would also enjoy this. Someone online who didn't enjoy this book compared this to the movie Scooby-Doo, and I loved that. It really does kind of feel like the Scooby-Doo movie with Sarah Michelle Gellar. I think especially with these sort of like fever dream, strange books, you can't go into this thinking about reality or logistics, because it's just going to mess with you and you're not going to be able to appreciate the ride it tries to take you on. You really just have to open this book, leave all logic at the door, and just let it take you where it wants to go. I really enjoyed this book, and I think you should give it a shot. Actually, I'm going to talk about a book I don't have with me before I forget. I said in my previous video that I like to read about food during summer, and last summer I read Taste by Stanley Tucci. I'll try to put the cover up here. Oh my gosh, I love that book. I am a big Stanley Tucci fan in general, but reading about his childhood, just reading descriptions about Italian food. I eat pasta in an unhealthy amount. So as you can imagine, reading his food memoir was just so delightful. But there's so much joy, there's so much love, there's so many funny moments between him recalling memories of his mother and his grandmother and him and the whole family just being together. Just, I loved it. It's a book that you finish and you just feel better. And it's, even though Stanley Tucci is obviously a very well-known actor, I didn't feel like it was too in your face with name drops. For most of the book, from my memory, it's mainly just talking about his family and his discovery and journey with cooking and eating, and loved it. Now for another weird one. Animal by Lisa Taddeo. This book was just full of rage. If a book could be written about that feeling of blood boiling in your body when you're just about to crack it, that's this book. We followed Joan, 36-year-old Joan, and she's been having an affair with a married man. And the book, and this isn't a spoiler, this is literally the synopsis. While she's at dinner with another man, the guy she's been having an affair with comes into the restaurant and shoots himself in front of her. And there she decides to get out of New York, and she's on a search for someone called, I really should have read the blurbs of this before. It doesn't even say the name. And she's searching for someone that we have no idea what the connection is or why she's trying to search for this person. So she drives to California and stays in what I remember as a desert town. But along the way, while she's driving to the town, there's just horrible men who just think they're entitled. They degrade her and they try to have their way with her. And this is just a book that talks about, I guess, the female experience and what it's like to live in a world with men. I don't have hate against men, but if you're a female, you obviously know, anyways. So this book talks about that, but because of the desert and because of some things that happen through the book, it does feel, again, quite surreal at moments. Just thinking about this book, I just think about the desert. I think about being sticky and sweaty and just feeling in that little bit of a daze that you feel when you're in hot weather. Kind of like when you're looking at the road and it's really hot and you can kind of just see the road sizzling. Do you know what I mean? That's that's this book. I would advise reading these two books during a heat wave. There was something so satisfying about reading this in 40-degree weather, reading about how the protagonist is absolutely parched in the desert, and then just feeling the sweat running down your back, becoming even more aware of it because you're reading about someone who's absolutely parched. Heat wave, please. And then I've got Seeing Other People, because I have to represent the Australian authors on here. This is by Diana Reid, and this follows two sisters who fall in love with the same person, and it's quite messy. It is set in Sydney. Is that right? In my head, this is set in Sydney. Maybe it's not. It doesn't say. Anyway, I was picturing Sydney beaches while reading this. But it's messy, it's a steamy, kind of sexy read as well. And especially if you kind of enjoy like a messy love situation, that kind of ticks the boxes. When I think about this, I think of just being at Coogee, if I'm being specific, being at Coogee at Gordon's Bay, sitting on the rocks and being in the blazing sun, and my skin is just sweaty and all I want is a cold drink. I don't even know if that makes sense, but when I think of this book, that's kind of what I'm thinking, what I'm picturing. But that's Seeing Other People by Diana Reid. And then is it my last book? It's my last physical book here, but I can't remember if there was another book that I wanted to talk about that I don't have on me. But I actually forgot to mention this book in my last video because I had already started reading it. So I thought I would recommend it now. And that's August Blue by Deborah Levy. Oh yes, I remember. I was going to recommend Levy's other fiction books that I've read. So Hot Milk is obviously quite popular when it comes to thinking about summer reading, but Swimming Home I know is also one of her popular books, but that book, that's my favorite Deborah Levy book. In Swimming Home, we follow a writer and his family as they holiday, I want to say to Italy, and when they arrive at the home they're going to stay at, there's a naked lady swimming in their pool, and from there it's just things happen. A common theme in Deborah Levy's writing is there's always a bit of a surreal factor, but there's always, or at least in Swimming Home and in August Blue, I read Hot Milk about 6 years ago, so it's a little bit blurry in my mind. There's always an unnerving tone in her writing. Even if nothing crazy happens, it just feels like there's this darkness that's kind of underneath everything, and it just feels like it wants to come out, and you're waiting to see whether the story just cracks open and it comes out, or whether it's just setting this kind of unsettling feeling to the story. This book feels like summer to me, but it's actually primarily set in autumn and winter time. So the book starts in Greece in September, and then most of the book is set between September and December, and then there's a jump to June or July in Italy. So most of the book is a winter book. So if you are in winter right now, you could easily pick this up. This book follows Elsa, who is a famous pianist, and she's just had this big performance in Vienna. It's not gone well, and she walks off stage mid-performance. That's not where the story begins. The story begins in Greece, as Elsa is watching this woman buy a pair of mechanical dancing horses, and she believes this woman is her double and that she enters her. So throughout the story, the surreal factor of it is that Elsa is continually seeing this woman pop up everywhere, and she's having conversations with her in her head. But the realistic story, I guess, is Elsa is trying to find out who she is. She's trying to rediscover herself, and everyone around her is quite confused as to why she's giving piano lessons to these random teenagers who aren't like musical prodigies, when she could easily get a job at a really prestigious music school if teaching is what she wanted to do. And then the themes in this book is definitely identity. She's trying to work out who she is if she's not playing piano, but also a theme of family. She was adopted at 6. She never met her birth mother. She was in a foster home until 6 when she got adopted by a piano teacher who wanted to bring her into his music school. And so she's battling with, does she want to know things about her mum or not? Does knowing about her mum help her figure out who she is? I think that one of the interesting things for me, or one of the questions for me, was, does knowing your biological family help you become the person that you were going to be? Like, does that have any influence on what you like and don't like? Not necessarily the environment you grew up in, but does knowing your biological parents have an impact on what you decide to like or how you decide to look? So that was really interesting. To be honest, this book is actually quite layered. I have recently started keeping a book journal where I just write a little, just some thoughts. Just write like dates or characters or a quote if I think it's got relevance, or I think I might want to use that in a review or to look back on. And I think that really made me stop and appreciate this book. And especially even now, just reflecting and talking about it has made me realize how brilliant this book is and how underrated it is. And I would advise reading it slowly and thoughtfully, because I think you will appreciate it a lot more that way. Okay, that's it. This has been a long video. Thank you for sticking around if you have, and dealing with my nerves and me fidgeting because of this and this. I hope I've introduced you to some books to potentially read, or if you've got these on your bookshelves already and they're just sitting there collecting dust, hopefully I've inspired you to maybe pull them off and read them. Let me know what other books I should have on my radar for summer, or yeah, just come talk to me in the comments about books. That's literally why I've started this channel. I just want to talk to people about books.